design is something we bring to the table. Next, assumptions. What this works, but why? What are the assumptions that underlie it? And as a result, limitations. If those assumptions aren't true, or if there are alternative sets of assumptions, what are the implications and what are the limitations? That's often a tough kind of a message to give to somebody who wants, especially when they want a particular answer. I want my drug to be efficacious. I want this regulatory rule to work. And we have to be candid, honest, ethical, help them to design and develop a process that gives them a sense that we've got the right answer. And the answer may be it doesn't. And so I think we bring all of those aspects, and I'll elaborate. So yes, I'll talk a little bit about what are the statistical skills we use in our organization that are helpful, that you may consider, you may have in your programs or care to add. But I also want to add this other aspect that plus 10 or whatever.
And none of us have talked or...
You got it. Yes. When I gave a keynote address at the Conference on Statistical Practice in 2015, that was my topic, communications. Why that's something we need to know, we need to be more aware of, and the extent to which you can help with that, I think is very valuable. And other skills that I'll describe that I think would be helpful, and I do believe there are departments that offer training and offer opportunities for students to grow in these ways. So why am I interested? So first, of course, would be that I work at an organization that has stat in its name. Westat began a little over 50 years ago. Western Statistics. It was founded by the head of the Department of Statistics, who was at the University of Wyoming at the time, and 2 graduate students. And that 3-person organization now is a 2,000-person. Oh, well, that's interesting. Does that do it automatically? Did I do that? Okay. I just thought it, and that's good. So it has now 2,000 people. 70 or so of those are statisticians, survey methodologists, statistical analysts, a few folks in the epidemiology, biostat area. And we employ thousands of people temporarily. Yes, it is working automatically.
Your slides must be on a timer. So
that's not good.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
How to stop that? It didn't do that. We'll see. So I have other reasons. I may have to keep hitting the left arrow key to keep it here. And I have other reasons besides my role at Westat directing this department of 70, mostly masters. It's about 60% masters and some PhDs. I also have a little bit of connection with academia. And then I've been a special faculty at the program in survey at the University of Maryland and University of Michigan. Westat's a partner in that, has been for 15 years, and also have been serving for some years as on an advisory board at George Mason University here in the area. So I'm quite interested in your deliberations and providing any input that would be helpful to you. And let's see how this discussion goes today. I'm excited about it. So we said primarily what we do is survey research, although we also do epidemiologic studies, clinical trials, case control studies. One of our largest projects, and our client, by the way, would be ERICA and other agencies. We do work for BLS and Census and National Center for Health Statistics, Education Statistics, Defense, and so forth. Any government agency that requires data, a design study, yes, it seems to be on a timer, that's very odd. Where they contract for that work, they'll put out a procurement and we'll bid with some of our competing colleagues, and we do a fair amount of this work. A large study would be our National Assessment of Educational Progress. This is done for NCES. Every year we're out working with ETS, Educational Testing Services, to develop the testing instruments. We will put, in a big year, alternate year, 5,000 people into the field to go to 20,000 schools and test 1 million kids in math and science and education. And then we work with other organizations to process it. We develop the survey weights and some of the estimates. And ETS does the analysis for education. So that's a sense of what we are as an organization. Statistics, that's our roots. And I mentioned our group, and we're very active in the association. We're active in APOR and other professional societies. We also have many of our stat staff are involved at the Joint Program for Survey Methods as instructors. And here's sort of the types of things we do, the type of work, survey methodology, trying to reduce total survey error, sample design and selection, survey weighting, imputation, variance estimation, analysis of that data with whatever models are appropriate, and some folks in the item response theory area for instrument development. So that's kind of what the group is like. The people in the survey methodology are, as I say, trying to reduce all elements of the survey error, everything from recall rates, who participates and who doesn't, how do we improve that, how do we assess the potential bias for it, what is an optimal recall length. I remember one study that I always enjoyed, we were working on for the Department of Interior, had to do with fishing and hunting activities, and they had been for some time asking hunters and fishermen, how many fish did you catch last year? And what we learned in our study is that the fishermen always overstated the number of fish that they caught. That's a survey methodology, skills and training in all aspects of design and evaluation of the survey. In sample design, what's the best design? Use of stratification and clustering, two-phase sampling, whatever that may be. These are typically, they could be national studies, they could be local, state level. We work in virtually any field. Someone was the comment of playing in people's, playgrounds. We get to do that because we work in so many different subject areas. As the survey is in the field, we have issues about how much of the sample to release and when. We have to impute for missing data, item response issues, how to weight the data at the end. That's often not simple because most surveys have, as you might know, thousands of variables and multiple purposes, and so that kind of a skill, that's somewhat unique training. I think many of your departments offer perhaps a sampling 101 class and not much beyond it, but there are some special purpose programs scattered throughout the country where we often draw some of our graduates from. I mentioned imputation and then variance estimation, and then of course to use the data to conduct analyses, to draw conclusions, to help an agency decide whatever it is they need to know, if it's about evaluating a ruling or a program. I recall one study that was rather interesting because the agency had already spent the money and put it in the field, and so there was no control possible. It was a case control study without a control, and yet somebody came up with a clever way of whatever it's called, yes, there's some button turned on in it. So someone came up with a clever way of using sort of a dosage measure. So we could still get a sense of how important the program was by measuring to what extent did people, were they aware of the program, it's that sort of the propensity. So we're often faced with challenging problems. Frequently you will look at a request from an agency and we'll say, gee, that, this certainly wouldn't work the way they're thinking about it, and we have to come up with ways that might be useful and help them to get valuable answers to the questions and the problems that they face. So these are some of the technical skills that we need and that we use, and people here have mentioned all of the software skills that are relevant. Yes, the same thing, and then a few unique software packages that deal with the survey environment, some special SAS routines and Sudan aspects of Stata that do this, special R packages, and so on and so forth. That's the kind of software training and technical skills. So we assume all that. We assume you're teaching them this deep and broad statistical knowledge and software, and we're learning. I mean, 10 years ago, SAS was probably the only thing that we used in-house. Many of your graduates come to us with a lot of other software skills, and we learned how and when to use them, when those are appropriate. I think what I'd like to focus on mostly is what else do they need? And I'm going to just, I think it's worth repeating. I could just say what Artie said and what Steve said, but it's too important. And it's something I've been concerned with and thought about for a very long time. I remember a program Roxy Peck had 15 or 20 years ago, bringing people in academia closer to folks with government or industry, and trying to understand what are the problems that we face and what, how can you better provide for them. And my project with the person I was teamed up with was communication, how to improve communication. So can you provide these skills? That'll be something you have to decide. What you may be, and again, I'm sure some of you are. In my role as ASA president last year, I've had an opportunity to visit a number of departments, and I was delighted and pleased to see that many places were teaching students, encouraging them, requiring them to do more writing and more presentations, oral presentations, and the more the better. I want to add, and I'm sure you're as aware of it as we are, but the graduate student population has been changing quite a bit in the past decade or so, hasn't it? The face of those students are often people who are learning in a second language. That presents its own unique challenges. And are there opportunities? And I'll put in a little plug for the Barry Nussbaum. One of Barry's initiatives is to bring Chinese Statistical Association, the Korean Association, and the Indian Statistical Association, and see if our associations together can find other programs, other ways to help our graduate students, help them in the world that they face and the challenges that that lay ahead for them. The ASA also, working with Donna Lalonde, starting something called Colleague to Colleague, and that program is aimed at reaching out to our graduate student members and our brand new recent members and connecting them up with someone who's been in the association a little longer, who might be a kind of a guide, who could be a resource to them, who might help them in facing not the technical issues, but the other issues about leadership and growth and professional development in whatever work environment they happen to be in. So indeed, wherever we can encourage people to give them the opportunity, practice, 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 to do the writing and to do presentations. I think organizational skills, how do you organize the work? I think Steve alluded to some of this, but most people that we hire, and in our 70, 75 folks, we might hire something in the 3 to 5 a year, that sort of range, and few, if any of them, are trained in ways to organize the work. They know how to solve the problem, they might know what is the right analytic model, they might be able to do that in R or SAS, but that's not the same thing as saying, how long will it take you? We still have an awful lot of people who, when they write a report, they just start writing. They haven't given any thought to what should be in it. They haven't given any thought to, what I'm writing, what the client needs. I haven't even asked them, what is it you're looking for? What are the questions you want answered? So estimating the effort and figuring out how long it takes and just organizing people. I've got some people that seem to have a more innate ability to do it, but all of us could learn better, and it's something we face. Every project we have has a budget and a timeline, and that's, I suspect, not something we teach. I didn't, have a lot of exposure to that in my graduate program. And then, of course, how do you know it's right? Checking it. There are certainly QC. There are programs in QC, but then there are people who they're not in those programs, they don't take those courses, and they may not think about, once I've done it, how am I sure, what are the things I should be checking, what are the things I need to set up in advance that increase the chances that what I have is what I want. Everything from, as I say, communicating with the client, giving them an outline and saying, is this the right thing, is this what you're looking for? Sending them early drafts. These are all things that make us as a company more effective, for sure, and we can use more of those skills from the students and new employees. And I think we also face a world of ethical challenges. Big data also increases the chances that people can be identified, and we have really strict requirements with our government agencies that say, you can't reveal things, you have to blur data, you have to do things with data sets to reduce the likelihood that people can be identified. I mentioned earlier, clients, they may have an answer that they want, and how we deal with that, our own conflicts we want to do it, we want to make it clear, we want to do it right, we want to make sure they understand what they got, not necessarily what they wanted to hear. So these are other skills that I think are important, we need, and I'm going to wrap it up because I know you have one more person. So thank you very much.